Okay, welcome everyone, and it's game on. Let's go on our first game, our first prediction. We'll start with Crystal Palace versus Liverpool. And first, I'm going to start with you here. Liverpool is another team that have had new ownership that have come into the Premier League, and they seem like they've started very well. There was a what you would call an abnormal result against Nottingham Forest, but other than that, they've kept clean sheets. And they've scored goals, and right now they are joint top in the Premier League. Is Liverpool under this new ownership of Slot? Are they now a title contender even early on in the season? Or do you think this is only the new manager bounce happening to Liverpool?
I don't think it's the new manager bounce. Slot was lucky to inherit an incredible team left by club. That was why he didn't go into the market. He came, he examined what he had, and he realized that this is an overwhelming group of squad. There is squad depth. There is experience, and most of those guys are in their peak in terms of their form. So definitely for him, he felt there was no need buying at this point. He has maybe during the break he will try to add some additions, but it's not for me. They've continued where they stopped. They were part of the guys that competed for the EPL. Though towards the tail end, I think they faded off, but it became a two-man race. But they were there for the better part of the season. No, against Crystal Palace. They've dominated this fixture for a very long time. As at 2024, Liverpool has won over 35 league meetings with Crystal Palace compared to Palace 14 victories. So when you're talking of Liverpool, they've had 5 wins, 1 loss since the beginning of this season, which is 6 games played. When you compare that to a Palace 3 draw, 3 losses, you could understand where the two teams currently at this point is miles apart. So for me, I will go with what the bookmakers actually is looking at in terms of this match. Bookmakers are giving Crystal Palace 16% to win this, and they are giving Liverpool 64% to win. So, and when you look at the head-to-head also, Crystal Palace has only won one of these tie in the last 5 matches they've played together. Liverpool has won 2, and there have been 2 draws, which is interesting. But for me, I would go with what the bookmakers are, giving out in terms of this match. Because when you look at where Liverpool are at this point, I think Liverpool will take the day. Though Palace will be playing home, which will make it more interesting. But I think Liverpool will be too strong for them in this match. So I give this victory a 3-1 win for Liverpool.
Liverpool too strong for Crystal Palace. I'll just give my prediction. I think that this match always goes in the way of Liverpool. Liverpool dominate possession in the games that they've played this season. Crystal Palace will have to rely on counter-attacks, and they're capable of doing that. The likes of Eze, Mateta, and our boy Nketiah, will be there to try and cause them problems. But I just only see one outcome here. I see a Liverpool win, even though at Crystal Palace, but I think it will be a narrow win. So I'm going to go with 2-1 to Liverpool because I think Crystal Palace will score a goal. Femi, how do you see this game going? Do Crystal Palace have enough to cause an upset against Liverpool?
Well, you're right in the sense that Liverpool seem to be, or of course, you and Festus have talked about, Faith have talked about the fact that Liverpool are on an upward trend. They're top of the league. They know how to win games. The manager seems to have got the team playing well, both in Europe and in the Premier League. So this is not going to be one that will test them so much. But I've also seen Liverpool capitulate at Palace. I remember that famous 3-0 to 3-3 when Liverpool were going for the title. So maybe Palace might take inspiration from that again. If the manager does well to get them remembering such a classic performance. So I'm gonna maybe just hope that Palace turn up on the day, and then they've got Eddie Nketiah, and the defense is in trouble. Nketiah in the room, so Better might do it. Mateta is also a talent. And they're at home. That stadium of being there is very small, and they can get on top of you very quickly if it goes well for them, the fans. So maybe something to derail Liverpool's plans this season. I'm probably going to say a 1-1 draw this one, Eddie.
1-1 draw. Okay, let's turn our attention to one of the big games in the fixture lineup this weekend, and that's Aston Villa versus Manchester United. Two teams that have a lot at stake. Aston Villa will see how they recover from a Champions League game, which they'll be having, I think, tonight. See how they recover. But Manchester United are in a really, really poor form. FaZe, I'm going to come to you on this one. What are the stats telling us? Unai Emery's side are playing with confidence right now, and the numbers back it up. Manchester United are struggling for consistency, especially on the road. Their away form has been shaky. How do you see this going?
It's really I don't know how to put it. Mind you, after 6 matches, just 2 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses is an understatement to say they are in poor form. They are in a woeful form. For a team like Man U, with this kind of results after 6 matches, it's really troubling. And when you look at the losses, you see that they've lost to the top 8 teams. Those losses came against Tottenham, the likes of Liverpool, and the likes of Brighton. So that gives you that's scope that they can't even match the big boys. So, and you could see that when you look at historically, yeah, they have the upper hand in this tie against Aston Villa. The bookmakers actually is giving Aston Villa 43% to win this against Man U is 2%. But when you look at the head-to-head in the last 5 matches, United has won 4 times against an Aston Villa and won, despite Aston Villa having been in form for the past 3 seasons. So, when you look at historically back to how it has been, Man U has dominated historically, which is common when you look at the background of both teams. But I want to go with the bookmakers in this. I want to believe that considering Aston Villa's form and how they've been playing, Aston Villa, like I said, has won 4 times, drawn 1, lost 1, and that loss was against Arsenal, which we know Arsenal beating you which can actually, with this, it shows you that these guys are also strong. That win could come because maybe it was early in the season, but when you compare both teams in terms of where they are, I think Aston Villa will take this, and I think this will end a 2-0 victory for Aston Villa.
Wow, 2-0 victory for Aston Villa. Femi, let me come to you. Excuse me. Aston Villa have been flying high this season. Unai Emery, he's come with the pedigree. He's turned Aston Villa around. They are playing in the Champions League, against Bayern Munich, and depending on how that result goes, they could be coming in with a loss of confidence. Manchester United cannot seem to buy confidence, even if they went to the store and they were given it for free. How do you see this matchup turning around, Manchester United and Aston Villa?
Well, Eddie, there are some games that you hope for a miracle and a miracle may happen. There are some that, it's highly unlikely that a miracle is going to happen. And this is one of those. Because Villa away, I mean, if you can't beat Tottenham on your own ground and you've lost 3-0, maybe there may be a reaction, if you see what I mean, because we all know that Man United are they're genuinely a force in football, but not necessarily right now. But I wonder how they fare. Do you talk about Aston Villa playing Bayern Munich? United will also need to go to Porto. So that Thursday game is not exactly what you want to be doing when you're traveling all the way to Portugal, back on Friday morning, because the game is at 8 o'clock, so they won't finish until 10. And then before you get to the hotel, 11:30, 12-ish. You don't want to be flying that late because of the players. If they do, they will not be getting back to their houses until 4 a.m. And they'll still have to sleep the night away one day. So overall, they haven't got much time to prepare on Friday. Maybe need the day off so that they can rest. Saturday is the only opportunity they've got. Then they've got a game on Sunday at 2 o'clock. Early kickoff in front of the cameras. Aston Villa would have played on Tuesday, with 4 days rest in between, and they'll be at home as well. So it's just really, really difficult, I believe, for United this one. As much as I want to hope for their own sake that they don't capitulate, but I think Aston Villa have a much better opportunity than they have. And if Villa, whether they beat Bayern Munich or not in the Champions League, it's not going to count for much. When they get into the Premier League, they know what they're doing. And so you can't measure your life when you're playing against teams like Bayern Munich effectively. So in a nutshell, we're gonna give this to Aston Villa 100%, and I think it will be another 3 goals. Maybe United can sneak one. I'm not sure, but let's say 3-1 to Aston Villa, Eddie.
That's really interesting, and I've got to go with you on this one. I backed Manchester United in the last couple of games, and I'm not backing them. When they play against high pressing teams, they've done that against Liverpool and Spurs, and actually that scoreline that you've given is the exact scoreline that Manchester United end up with: 3-0 against Liverpool, 3-0 against Spurs. I also see another 3-0 in this game. I think United are very low on confidence. I think going to Aston Villa, a very difficult ground. Arsenal and Man City, lost to Aston Villa last season, in that ground, so they're trying to make, Villa Park a real fortress. And looking at Manchester United right now, I think the defense is a little bit shaky. Aston Villa is going to press them very high and will force errors. And with the pace of Ollie Watkins in that team, Morgan as well pulling the strings in the midfield, I just can't see any other result than Aston Villa. So I'm going to go with a 3-0 victory to Aston Villa. Right. Our final prediction for the weekend: Brighton versus Newcastle. Two teams, very, very exciting. This one looks like it might be a thriller, right?
You mean versus Spurs?
Right? Is it
Mhm.
Spurs?
Yeah. So you might put them again. I think there's something about Newcastle and you today. Guys, just so you know, Eddie used to live in Newcastle. So if he keeps mentioning Newcastle, it's only because he lived there for a few years. And when you've lived in a city or town, it's going to be in your mind. So, but it's the almighty Spurs coming into town or going into town against.
What makes them mighty?
You're absolutely right. It's
What makes them mighty?
Brighton versus Tottenham. I don't know why I said Newcastle. Brighton versus Tottenham. Two exciting teams, right? Angie, obviously likes to do it his way. He will play attacking football, whether there's 9 players on the team, on the pitch, or 8 players. It doesn't matter. He will play the same way, and he played that way and got a result. Against Manchester United. So, Faith, let's come to you on this one. Brighton, right, have been almost the model team in the Premier League. Everyone is looking at how they run the club, what they do for players, how they scout players. They seem to be able to replace talent after talent with no drop in quality. And they've also seemed to be able to replace manager after manager with no drop in quality. So this game, looks to me like one that will be a thriller. What do the bookmakers say in this one? How do you see this game going?
Eddie, believe me, I think Brighton needs to be studied in the university. Believe me, it has to be studied. There is something unique. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they seem to replace the managers that leaves. You think, oh, this is a problem. These guys are going to suffer for this manager. Then somebody comes in and do better. And most times when the manager comes, the managers are relatively unknown. When I mean unknown, not especially in the English circle, unknown that much in world football, but they use Brighton as a kind of a launch pad to make their names. We've seen it over time. We've seen it, across different managers, and how they keep replacing these same managers is baffling. The same thing comes to players. You see, some names comes in and you wonder, who are these? Who are these guys? And a lot of clubs poach the likes of Troza we are talking about, a whole lot of players, they've if we're talking of the big guys and what they've poached from Brighton, especially Chelsea, Arsenal, a lot of teams, even the Tottenham, everybody has poached from Brighton. You poach their budding talents, and somehow they bring in, relatively unknown guys with very sound talent, and the next season they are poached again, and they keep replacing these guys. So they really need to be studied. How they get this done, is baffling, and it's something that really we need to put into context and document so that maybe some relatively average teams, could really copy this, and which could actually help them, because this puts them in a very good financial standing, because if you look at that team is financially stable, they sell well, they buy cheap. So it's a model that needs to be studied, really. Now, back to the game. Like you said, this is clearly going to be a thrilling game. Both teams play exciting football. Both teams are attack-minded team. And interestingly, both teams are in the 8th and 9th position, which gives you an idea that this is a team that currently have relatively equal strength in terms of how they play, where they are in terms of form. And also, um, when you look at what they've across the 6 matches they've played this season, Brighton has won twice, drawn 3, lost 1. Tottenham has won 3, drawn 1, lost 2. So, and that is why you could see why they are in 8th and 9th position. So they are almost on the same point. And when you look at historically, the Brighton, Tottenham fixture is not a long-standing relationship, because we all know that Brighton, has not been in the English top flight for long, but it has really produced some notable moments, for me in recent years. Tottenham has had an upper hand in the fixtures, especially in the early Premier League. But believe me, since Brighton recent tries, like in the last 3 seasons, they've been up there, and they've actually made this match always interesting. Spurs dominated, I think, between that 2017, 2019, it was all Spurs. But after then, it has been both sides. Now, when you look at the last 5 matches, both teams has played, Brighton has won 2, Tottenham has won 3 times. Now, let's look at what the bookmakers are giving. The bookmakers are actually giving Tottenham days to win. They are giving Tottenham a 43% to win against a Brighton 33%. For me, I am looking at all the indices that matches. It shows that this is a team. Both teams looks equally matched in all ramification, the attack, the midfield. They all have defensive vulnerabilities, which shows that there will be a lot of goals in this match. For me, I'm predicting a 3-3 draw in this match.
A 3-3 draw. Wow, that's lots of goals. I don't think anyone will be complaining about a 3-3 draw. It means goals flying in, left, right, and center. Femi, let's talk about Ange, Portugal. We know they are the noisy neighbors across the road from Tottenham, from Arsenal, as an Arsenal fan. But you have to look at what the manager has done, the belief in his style, the conviction in his way of playing. And you could argue that they play entertaining football. Spurs seem to be capable of scoring 2, 3, 4 goals every single game. So looking at that Spurs team, how do you see them countering what Brighton has to offer, and who do you think will have the edge in this game?
Well, I think FaZe gave a lot of very vital information regarding how the two teams play, their recent history, the long-term history. And you've just got to look at the recent history anyway, in terms of form. There are some games that come up and form doesn't count. It's when you look at Liverpool, Everton, Man United, Liverpool, maybe Arsenal, Spurs as well. There are so many rivalries that you don't really need to look at form. The two sets of players will turn up on the day. This is not so much a London derby because Brighton are well situated outside of London. So Spurs will know this is an away game outside of the capital. I think Brighton are better placed than them because other than that result away to Man United, Spurs are flattered to deceive this season. I'm sure you'll agree with me that well, other than really, really doing an amazing job of trashing Everton 4-0 at home, at the start of the season, which we all know is possible. And then I've got to compliment them as well for beating Brentford 3-1 at home. Other than those two results, Spurs have threatened and threatened and threatened. They've not done anything. So that they went and beat Man United is a good turnaround for them. But where is that? That's just those are the three victories I've just highlighted there in terms of the league. And that's why they are where they are right now in the Premier League. So overall, if I'm going to look at this game, I think Brighton have a better chance of winning it. You see what I mean? I think they've got a really, really, really good chance, Brighton, because they're the home team. They just know what they're doing, Brighton, when they play in hand. Some way, somehow. Of course, they don't always come good because they've got a young manager. He's still learning the league and all of that. But I think the players are still the same. They've recruited well. And Welbeck is scoring goals, Eddie. He's absolutely flying at the minute. Pedro will not be available, but that's something they can always find different answers for. So Spurs will not be pushovers, but I'm just slightly leaning towards Brighton here, and I think Brighton might take this 2-1 just because of their form, the home team that they have as well. I mean, Spurs went to Leicester, they couldn't win. I'm not sure they will win away at Brighton, Eddie. So give it to Brighton this one, 2-1 winners on the day.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a Desmond on this one, 2-2, to between Brighton and Spurs. I think this game will end in a draw. Brighton, they've had 3 draws in their last, 5 games. And away from home, they are relatively a force. Now, Spurs like to press very high and use quick transition to hit the opponent. And I think the key for Brighton is how they manage the high press from Spurs and how they make sure that, during those transitions and those phases, that goes from, attack to defend, that they can manage that well. But I think they are a threat, up front with Welbeck and Mitoma. I also think that Spurs, potentially have a weakness, at the back. They're not very good at, crosses, and also defensively with corners. We've already seen them get punished, and the manager, doesn't want to hear about it. Doesn't want to hear anybody talk about, his set pieces and what he's doing and what he's not doing. So I think that would be an opportunity for Brighton if they can take advantage of that. So I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw in this game. And that's it, guys. Let's know what you think, about our prediction. Do you have a different view? Who do you think is going to win from the games that we've talked about? Please put that in the comment section and let us know how you think the weekend will go.